And we're live. Welcome
Welcome back.
to episode 3 of Under the Helmet. I'm joined here by Mr. Dark Leftovers himself. Darks, go ahead and say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
We are going to continue this series of content here. We've gotten some pretty good feedback from guys in DK and from the community, so thank you for that. Please keep it coming. We definitely love to kind of hear what you guys are thinking, love your ideas, and anything you offer is awesome. If this is new for you, you're not sure what in the world this is or what's going on, the main thing that we're trying to offer is kind of some personal growth and leadership development. We've been, introduced this in episode 1, gave some details about kind of the general thing, so I won't go ahead and rehash all of that. But the topic today is designed to build on the foundations of those other two to a limited extent. You can still benefit from this if you haven't listened to the other two, but we will be referencing some of the core concepts, at least some of the core lessons learned from the previous ones, as we kind of continue to grow and as we continue to look at this. So that is going to continue to be the game plan for us, and I'm going to dive right into kind of what to expect today and where we're going to be heading. First things first, we're going to be talking about constructive feedback. So if you'll kind of recall, we talked in the first stream about the attitude that you should have for improving yourself and self-assessing your own weaknesses and how to build them into strengths, or at least less bad weaknesses. And then in the next stream, on episode 2, we talked about conflict management in very high level terms, gave some examples. And then here we really want to talk about this idea of giving good feedback or constructive feedback, however you want to think about it. Because now that we understand how to respond to conflict, it's also good to know how to have, what I'm going to call beneficial conversations. Because a lot of people get really, go really sideways on how to give suggestions or give recommendations or help somebody improve. Like you see somebody do something wrong, and then you want to help them be better, and then you approach it in the wrong way, and suddenly that person closes their ears to it. They get mad, they get upset, they don't listen, any number of things, and you can walk away from that situation going, well, that guy's just an a-hole. He just doesn't want to do any better, when maybe your approach was wrong. And so we're going to be talking about the approaches that you can use for this and how to think about this approach, and then what I'm hoping is that you can walk out of this with a better way of, or at least some strategies for how, when you see opportunities to make suggestions, to make improvements, how can you do that in a way that's constructive and give you a higher probability of being listened to and heard and making a difference and making changes in the people around you. So as far as the agenda is concerned, we're going to talk about time, place, and fairness. We'll go through all of that in detail. The tone and attitude that you need to bring to the table, and then the 2 primary techniques that we're going to talk about for delivering feedback. And then for something like this, some examples are very necessary. So I've mapped out a couple of examples of this in action to try to demonstrate what this looks like. So Dark, I've kind of ran straight ahead full steam without really giving you a chance to weigh in. So any thoughts before we get going?
No, nothing really. Just just excited more to just sit down and be a glorified audience member here. So I know that's something I struggle in as a squad leader too, is to how to deal and give good constructive feedback.
All
'Cause I
right.
know it's one thing that like people feel very encouraged or discouraged about. Because end of the day, everyone wants to feel like they did well, and sometimes you don't want to be that a-hole that just tells them, oh, well, you should have done this better, and if you would have done X, Y, then we would have succeeded. And it's like that's not how you do good to get people wanting to play in your squad more often. So definitely excited to just see what I can learn and what I could use in field for this.
Awesome. So let's start with time, place, and fairness. This is a whole bunch of ideas lumped into one thing, and I'm going to abbreviate some of these ideas for the sake of our time, because I don't want to spend as much time as I might be able to commit to this in a different environment. But first things first, similar to conflict management, we talked about last week, is you want to anticipate conflict and be prepared to de-escalate. So just as a basic reminder, kind of plan the conversation a little bit. So if you're walking into this conversation, you're going to be giving somebody some feedback that they might be uncomfortable with, that they might even disagree with. Go ahead and take a little bit of time in advance to say, okay, well, how could they take this? Put your head in their shoes for a minute. Try to empathize with them for just 2 seconds and think, is there a way that they might take this the wrong way? And if so, how am I going to respond to that? And you'd be amazed at what kind of benefits you get from preparing your mind and preparing yourself for those alternatives, so that if they do happen, you're not caught flat-footed trying to search for the right word and possibly making things even worse. You've already premeditated what you're going to do, the attitude you're going to have, and the approach that you're going to take. So preparation, preparation, preparation. You want to, of course, avoid addressing somebody if either you or they are emotional or frustrated. This is a mistake that people get a lot, and I see it happen very, very frequently in operations. And some of you may have even heard me say this before in ops. Save it for later. We got to get our head back in the game. I've said something like that countless times where we've had something go wrong, and people get a little frustrated. They say, "Gosh, why did you do that? What's going on here? We should have done this, that, the other." That's not the right place because the stress of the situation is too intense. Either number one, you're frustrated because we just made a mistake and it had an impact on us, and that you're not in a clear state of mind to either give feedback or receive feedback in those conditions. And number two, we still got to play the game. We still got a war to win. We still got a battle to win. Now is not the time to litigate an issue like this that we can learn from later. Not the time, not the place. So make sure that you're choosing the right time. And with that, choose the right place. Address in private to minimize the impact of people's ego. Again, this can be so difficult because it's top of mind right now. You want to deal with it right now. It's fresh. You want to make sure your initial impulse is to strike while the iron's hot. And when you're giving or trying to give good feedback that's going to help somebody grow, when the iron's hot is not the right time to do it, especially when it's in front of other people. And I don't think I need to explain this, but I think all of us have been corrected in front of our peers or been corrected in front of an audience. And if you've ever been in that situation or you think back to this situation, that never feels very good. And it doesn't feel good for anybody. And depending on how secure you are, depending on how secure that person is, the immaturity or insecurity of that individual is going to throttle how effective or ineffective this is. Because somebody that has some insecurity, somebody that has some discomforts or a lot of self-awareness, if they get reprimanded in public, their rational sense goes out the window because they're just embarrassed. They're frustrated. They're upset that you're embarrassing them in front of these guys, that you're cutting them down. Even if you're right, the place is just wrong, and you close people's minds to hearing things because they're too busy being wrapped up in the intensity of their own emotions of being embarrassed or demeaned in front of their team. Whether you're demeaning them or not, you may be perfectly disciplined. You may be very methodical and right. You may do all of the steps in this that we said right. Because if you do this right, you're not going to embarrass anybody. You're not going to cut them down. And I hope that you'll see that. But even if you do all these things right, doing it in front of other people puts people on the defensive, and they're not in a mind to learn. They're not in a mind to grow, and they're not in a mind to listen. And so I can't emphasize that one enough. That's probably like one of the main cardinal rules of this is try to do these kind of things in private. The other thing I want to mention here, and this is, once again, is it the most important? I think I could probably say this might be the most important. But take a second and ask the question, is this fair? If this doesn't seem fair from the other person's perspective, maybe it isn't. And I'm going to apply this in the context not necessarily of Foxhole, but actually in management, because I've seen this mistake probably more commonly in a management context, in like a professional organizations, than I have anywhere else, where a leader will see a mistake in a team member that they think demands like a formal level of corrective action. They're going to write this employee up because this employee made a mistake. And we go down, he lays out the case. I listen to him, say, yep, from your perspective, this case seems good. It seems like there's a problem. We sit down with the employee, me as support, the manager giving the discipline, and the employee gets really upset with the feedback. And because the employee believes that it's not fair. This is not just. This is not at all what happened. I didn't have the support that I needed. You didn't train me. This person wasn't pulling their weight. This wasn't all on me. Why am I being singled out? Like any number of those things will come up. And you hear those things, and immediately your first reaction is to get defensive and say, oh, this person's just not taking responsibility. And you're right. In some respects, they're not taking responsibility. But if you think about it, in many of these cases, they actually have some good points. That maybe we're not being fair. Maybe we're not being just about this. Maybe we are taking our own failings as a leader and projecting it on our team members. Because many times, and I'm a firm believer in this, when our team members fail and they don't meet the objective, or they fail and their performance is lacking, I believe that's a leader problem. Like in me, if for me as a leader, if my team's not succeeding, the first place I go to is myself, say, okay, how have I failed my team? Did I not train them properly? Did they misunderstand my instructions? Did I go through all this rigorous self-assessment to try to really think, is there something that I could do better to support them? And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to own that responsibility. And I'm going to come in softer than heavier. I'm not going to write that person up. I'm going to coach that person instead and say, hey, listen, we as a team didn't do this right. And I realized looking back on it that maybe I didn't share with you why this was so important. So I really want you to understand why we need to hit the nail on the head with this every single time. And that when we miss this, it creates this kind of issue. And imagine you as a team member, if you're receiving that communication from your leader and he's owning that, you're the one that screwed up, but he's owning it. How do you feel then? You feel supported. You feel like you're going to be that leader's got your back, that he understands the bigger picture, that he's not going to throw you under the bus when things get rough. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that is very, very good when you do this well and you take the time to make sure that the coaching you're delivering is fair and just, and being open minded and humble enough to realize that your first impulses might not be your best impulses, that your first assumptions about who's responsible may be completely off. Uh, and so at the end of the day, the last point kind of ties into that very nicely. Be prepared to listen and to coach, and not necessarily to dictate and educate. Uh, and I think if you, of all the things we're going to talk about, this philosophical framework, if you get this right, you'll find that you won't put yourself in conversations that are really, really difficult, that are unjust, unfair, and are impossible to defend. And I've had to defend some very hard discussions where, the leader was technically right. Yes, that person screwed up, but I could find a whole host of things that we didn't do to support that team member. And while we could, stay legally and from a lot of people's perspectives, we could say, yes, that person screwed up, and yes, we had every right to discipline this person. Heck, we had every right to fire that person. But that doesn't mean, just because you have the right doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Just because you have the ability and you can defend it legally or you can defend it philosophically doesn't mean that there's not another perspective that makes it a bad decision. And that takes, again, a little bit of humility and a little bit of experience, a little bit of self-reflection, and a little bit of open-mindedness, a little bit of empathy. All of those things, all these things that we've been talking about come into play in this one principle in a very powerful way. And so I really, as we go through this, want this to be almost the foundation for how we think about this and how you consider opportunities for giving, coaching, because your frame of reference, your frame of mind and attitude that we're going to talk about in a second determines your success here. Dark, anything comes to mind immediately?
Not here. This is definitely if you really want to be a good squad leader to really take note and really like understand what you're teaching is to really how to be. It's just sorry, my mind's everywhere right now. It's one of those things that how to keep people from being enjoying playing the game and being like people are having some issues where, well, I don't have these people don't like following me, they don't understand me, or yeah, I have this issue of I can't keep people back in my squad. Why is that? And these are the things you got to reflect on: is are you a good are you a good leader? Are you an enjoyable person to play with and whatnot? When the time comes, and this is what the biggest issue is, to give criticism or feedback, are you just bashing the person in front of people, like what you're saying, doing it publicly versus private? Are people learning anything from their mistakes? And you're just coming across as you're just in lack of a better word, you're just a jerk, and people don't really want to spend time playing with someone who all they do is just point out their faults but never their own. And it's just it's not, it's more of a toxic environment, and no one really likes doing that, especially in their own time, playing a video game.
Absolutely. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people get defensive about, their own performance is they feel like if they show they show that vulnerability that they're weak, right? Like if I'm not perfect or if I'm making mistakes, people aren't going to have confidence in me as a leader. Or
Yeah, especially when you're like, I'm just speaking on from a clan perspective. If you're new to the clan, and even sort you're new to the game, and you were recommended to clan too, and it's 100% not your fault, and you shouldn't be put in an environment where you made a mistake in a game where mistakes are pretty common, yet you're being held to this regard of what the hell are you doing? Like, how could you make this mistake? And you know, I wouldn't want to stay in an environment that I'm being criticized just by that. It means like you don't understand what it's one of those things that we don't. A lot of people don't see because they have that veterancy glasses on. Is that they forget where people came from. We all started new, and that's one thing to like accept and to really get back to understanding, is not everyone is the same, and that's I know it's a lot of issues that people struggle with is, oh, why can't that guy shoot this dude? Like you're literally looking at him, and it's like many things could be happening, and I don't know, it's just I think this is a good topic for those who really want to aspire being squad leaders, because this is something that like being an officer in the clan and seeing like someone being offering good constructive feedback is a very good leadership tool, because it helps build player retention, people who actually want to enjoy playing the game with them as their leader. And it's like, I can't stress this enough. This is something to really like jot down if you want to be a leader in any sort of sense, because it's one thing to lead, but it's also to have to actually educate or even like, help people in a way. You get what I mean?
100%. I would say this is mandatory for leaders, and this is really helpful if you're if you're a follower or a team member, or you're an emerging leader or somebody that's growing. I think all of those things are very, it's relevant for all those things. And I want to just take 1 second, because you kind of prompted my memory here, to kind of give a couple of things that may be counterintuitive to really reinforce this point home. And I'll say first of all that I have very almost never seen professionally. I've seen it in games on occasion because people are intolerant and it can be ugly in the online community because they got the space to do that. But professionally, I've never seen somebody stand up and take ownership for a mistake. And when they've done it right, they've been humble, they've owned it, and they've been really good about it, that they've suffered really negative consequences. I've seen plenty of examples of the alternative, where a leader or an employee in the organization makes a mistake, has an issue or whatever, and they deflect and they blame and they don't own responsibility. It's everybody else's fault. Everybody around them is idiots. I wasn't trained to do this properly. The people that I'm working with are lazy. My manager's an idiot. I've seen those kind of things, and those people always fail. I'm just going to be real with you. I very seldom see those people succeed, that are always deflecting responsibility, that are never looking within themselves to see improvement. And to give you one, and I think some of you have heard this example because I've talked about this before in a different context, but I'll give it again because it's my most memorable one. But I remember quite vividly, an issue with a director of laboratory services at the hospital I was working at. And he had failed to submit the renewal for the laboratory license in time, which ultimately was going to affect the hospital's ability to conduct laboratory services and bill for laboratory services, which is absolutely massive to that facility and its ability to function, take care of patients, and even get paid. So a huge issue. And he walked into that situation and didn't blame, did not deflect, owned it, came up with a plan for what he was going to do about it. Then later on, he did a presentation, asked to do a presentation to the rest of the leadership team, and he stood up in front of that leadership team and said, guys, I really dropped the ball on this. Here's what I did wrong. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what I'm doing to make sure something like this never happened again. And again, my CEO at the time was looking at that situation, and from her perspective, her initial impulse when she gets a word that this guy had threatened her hospital is, I'm going to fire this guy. I'm going to chop this guy's head off. I'm going to put it on a stake by the highway. And by the time this was over, she had turned her attitude around completely and had come to the conclusion that this is one of the best leaders that she had in the organization. And I've seen few people make a mistake as nearly as consequential as that guy made. And I've seen people make minor mistakes when they were not owning it, not taking responsibility, having a bad attitude, that just don't succeed. And I really want you to open your mind to how you can apply this, not just in gaming, because it's good in gaming, it's healthy in gaming, it's good to practice in gaming, as we've talked about before. But this is powerful to open up your real life, your career, and your own development if you do this right and you set your attitude straight. So nevertheless, we've delayed this topic enough. I'm going to move on to the next slide here and continue this thought. So when you are walking into a coaching situation, let's say you've done all the things that we've talked about and you've come to the conclusion that, yeah, there's an opportunity to grow for this person. I think I can help this person grow in some material way. When you're having the conversation, you're preparing for it, one of the most difficult things to do from a technique perspective is to avoid using the word you when delivering negative information. And this is just, again, this is a technique thing more than it is anything else. But one of the things that I've noticed through a lot of experience is the minute that you put the word you into a statement that's negative, it becomes accusatory, and people by nature unconsciously start to get defensive because it's coming off more aggressive that way. And so there are a couple ways that you can reform, and I will tell you, the first time that you try to do this, it's very uncomfortable and very awkward. Like, even writing like this is very awkward, and you go back and you look at your sentence, you go like, this doesn't even make any sense. I don't know how to rewrite this in a way that I'm not using the word you. It's hard to do, but once you've done it a few times, you see kind of the potential for what it does, and it just changes the tone. I don't know, it's a little bit of witchcraft, honestly. But it just changes the tone quite a bit if you can find a way. Because what you're finding, but I think what happens naturally is that when you rework your sentence to where you don't use the word you actually have to change a lot of words to get that done, and you change the words in such a way that it's less threatening. because and it's less accusatory, it's less direct, and it's more collaborative. And I'll give some examples of that I think will showcase that here in a moment here. In these conversations, especially if it's an uncomfortable conversation, okay, and this is a little bit in conflict management, it's a little bit about giving feedback, but try to be brief. Like, because when people are getting negative information, you want that piece to be direct, to the point. You want it to be brief, and uh, you want it to be easy to understand, so they can get out of that uncomfortable moment. Because anytime you're receiving correction, anytime you're receiving critical feedback, it's a little uncomfortable. So get through the uncomfortable part quickly by getting to the point, and don't dilly dally, don't waste words. Just get it out there, get it over with, and then move on to the other parts of the conversation. The other thing you want to do, and this seems a little counterintuitive, is you want to avoid apologizing. If you're going to be giving feedback and you're going to be giving coaching about a real issue that you're dealing with, a lot of people undercut the intensity of discussions, because sometimes it needs to be a little intense, by saying, I'm sorry that I have to have this conversation. Because then you're saying that you don't believe in it. Like you're starting, like, you're trying to empathize with the person. There's something good about trying to empathize, but you're having this conversation for a reason. So don't destabilize the relevance of the conversation by apologizing for what you're not sorry for. So it's kind of a part being genuine and part not undercutting yourself. But I mean, if you got something to apologize for, apologize by all means, but don't apologize if you don't mean it. Like, sometimes you're sorry that you have to have the conversation because you genuinely don't want to have this and you're uncomfortable yourself. But really, most of the apologies that happen in this are not helpful to the discussion. Ultimately, be aware of how you feel. If you're frustrated, chances are you're going to sound frustrated. One of the things that a lot of people deceive themselves about is that they're really good at managing their emotions, that they're really good at hiding their emotions and disguising their emotions. But I'm going to tell you right now, in all probability, you're really bad at managing and disguising your emotions. When we have conversations, when we talk, our underlying attitude comes out in our speech, in our nonverbal cues. So when you're frustrated, you give a lot of nonverbal tics that you're not even aware of, that make it clear to everybody that's listening to you that you're frustrated. When you're excited, there's a lot of nonverbal tics that happen that let everybody in the room know that you're a little excited, you're a little into this, you're a little happy about this right now, right? And those things happen because we naturally have our emotions show in all forms of our communication. So be self-aware enough to know how you're feeling, and if you're not in a good state of mind, you're not centered, then that might not be the best time to have that conversation. At the end of the day, make sure it isn't personal. It's about the team, the relationship. Detach from those emotions. You got to get yourself out of the middle of it. And when you get yourself out of the middle of it, you can do that all important step of asking the question, is this fair? Is this just? Am I being reasonable about this, or am I getting carried away with my frustrations or with my history with this person? Because a lot of times, and I want to commend Dark in this, because Dark will commonly, if we're reviewing an issue even in DK, he'll take a step back and say, I'm too close to this issue. I know I'm a little frustrated right now. I got some background with this guy, and I've got some strong opinions that I might have about this because of my proximity to this situation. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say instead, because I know that my judgment is compromised. That's a huge level of self-awareness to have, and that's awesome to be able to detach from your emotions enough to realize when you might be too close to a situation. And then last but not least, because this has to show up in every single one of these things, check
Our
you.
favorite. My bad, I didn't cut you
Yeah,
off. But
no,
yeah,
go for it, man.
there you
Have
go.
at it, Dark. Have at it.
Just two things. I don't know who was that person you were just talking about earlier, but sounds like an awesome guy. But also, our favorite sentence here is check your ego. I think that probably almost every Thursday or every Tuesday, my bad, you will hear this every single time, because it's probably one of the biggest things that could really just help with. I think out of everything, you got to check that ego, because it's the main and probably almost the first wall to prevent you from being just in general a pleasant person, and to help build towards I can't even say the word, but
Humility.
trying to be humble, humility, exactly, is that ego. And I know that's me personally. That's something I struggle with almost, personally, in the workplace, in my personal life, and in my gaming life as well. It's like, it's real hard to just find that spot where you can be like, because sometimes you want to give input, because, like, just basing on the example Kaz was saying earlier, where you're so upset and you really probably really dislike this person, and you want to give your feedback because you hate this, not hate's a strong word, but you dislike the person so much to a point where you're pretty much biased, and being a critical thinking person, you can't once you realize you have emotions like that, you're not thinking straight, you're not thinking fairly, because in the end, it doesn't matter what you're feeling is how you're handling and doing the situation. And if you know you're being fair and calm and not emotionally attached in any sort of way, then you can really start to understand, you can understand how a certain situation ended up in its position because you've already isolated yourself from your own personal emotions.
Right. One of the most difficult things to do is when you've got history with somebody and to detach from that and really look at the situation. And so, just to give one very brief example about this, let's say that we'll use like a DK example. We've got a guy that we've talked to him a couple times, but he's been in world chat giving crap to all of our allies. Like he's just letting the Warden Navy have it, and he's done that a couple times. We've coached him, and suddenly we get a report that he's done it again. And your immediate assumption is that that report is true. Why? Because your previous experience has told you that it could be true. And then as a result, you don't go in and validate and verify that that actually happened. You're not fair to the individual. You didn't investigate. You didn't give him a chance to defend himself. You didn't check the quality of your sources. And you go in and make a mistake, and somebody took advantage of your prejudice, and you're going to go in and make a bad decision against somebody that might be innocent because you've got history. And that seems like something that's unlikely, but it happens a lot. And it happens in really dangerous ways. I mean, in the gaming scene, you hurt some relationships, whatever, but in the professional sense, that happens professionally all the time with leaders and managers, and they do that. They got somebody that they think in their mind is a low performing employee or has a negative quality, they suddenly look at any stimuli they receive with the lens of that, and they're no longer being objective, they're no longer being unbiased, they're no longer giving the person the benefit of the doubt and being fair, and that's because it's personal at that point. Like, it doesn't seem like it's personal, but it's personal. It may not be emotional, but it is personal. And as a result, the ability to be objective is completely and totally compromised. Going ahead and moving on here, I want to go ahead and take a moment to kind of talk about some methods. So you've done all this stuff, and it sounds like a lot of work already. We haven't even talked about the actual conversation yet. We haven't even talked about how to give coaching. We've just talked about your attitude and your mindset in your head, and that's
It's always the most important thing is like
right.
you can't and I think when people will notice the more they keep watching, your streams and whatnot, is you're always focusing more on preparing yourself. I think it's always the first step is you have to prepare yourself before you even enter in the engagement, because if you don't have a plan to succeed, you are going to fail at the first bump because you're not mentally prepared for that. And that's just one thing is like I'm starting to notice more and more. It's like all these have like a perfect synergy, and the more I'm sitting here listening, the more I'm just like, oh, this is all coming together.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And it's designed to do that. A lot of these principles are designed to build on one another, as I mentioned at the start of this stream. And when you start to master them, you'll find that they influence all of the other techniques that we're talking about. And by the time that we're through this series, or a good way part of the way through the series, you'll be anticipating some of the techniques because you'll already have the underlying philosophy that guides these principles. Okay, and I think that's very important to realize. We're still going to touch on those principles and emphasize them because that's what you got to get right. We're trying to teach how to assess unique situations that may be unique to you. And if you've got the right underlying philosophy and the right values, you're going to make the right call in those very bizarre, unique situations because you've been taught how to make a decision and how to assess a situation, not just what to do. It's kind of like the old adage, teach a man to fish and he can feed himself. It's that very much in that thing. I could give you fish all day long. But if I teach you how to fish, if I teach you kind of how to go about it, you're going to be better able to respond to a whole variety of situations. And that's really what we're trying to do here. So let's talk about the actual the end product here. What are you looking to accomplish, and what are some raw tactics that can help you achieve some of the principles that we've already talked about? So this first model here is called SCS, Support Coach to Support. Pretty easy to remember, and it's pretty easy to understand. And the basic methodology around it, if you're trying to build a framework, you're trying to build a strategy, is that when you're going in to talk to somebody, you're going in to provide maybe something that could be perceived negative, maybe some feedback, is you want to go in, you want to start by being supportive, you want to give the coaching in the middle, and then you want to end by being supportive. So you want to start positive, and you want to end positive. You want to couch anything that's negative in the middle of those two positive things. You can use this in a lot of different ways, by the way. This is useful for interpersonal relationships with peer-to-peer coaching, and I'll demonstrate some of that in a minute. One thing that I need to be very critical to emphasize here is if you're only recognizing people when you are, when there's a problem, this loses a lot of effectiveness. Because what happens is if people only hear from you when there's an issue, then they begin to associate you with issues all the time. And a lot of managers, once again, go wrong with this by only touching base with their employees, only touching base with their staff when there's something wrong. And so every time that manager walks in, then and you see them, you have been conditioned, like Pavlov's dog, you've been conditioned to associate them with correction. And so right away, you're already like, oh gosh, what has he got? What has he got to tell me now? What did I do wrong? That's what happens. And in HR, human resource personnel management, they got that reputation because the only time you go to HR is when there's a problem, right? And so we don't always do a great job of setting things in motion. We're not always associated with positive things. We're associated with negative things, and that's a really powerful thing to be mindful of, and it can really cut your legs out if you're only known for one kind of approach. So, as a general rule, if you're leading, you want to find as many opportunities as possible to recognize your team, to be positive, to give guys credit. And if you're known for doing that, when you come and do this, it's not going to seem like a big deal. And we haven't really talked about recognition or that philosophy in great detail. We'll probably do that later, but it is important to acknowledge while we're here. At the end of the day, you want to be genuine and you want to be real. If you can legitimately find anything you can enthusiastically commend, then do that, but don't make something up. That's the bottom line. Is that I've seen a lot of people, especially if like they're novice to this, they'll walk in and they'll try to make up like something positive that's not actually positive, or it's so clearly manufactured that they don't feel that way and they can't deliver it genuinely because they don't actually believe the person did a good job. Don't do that. Don't lie to somebody. That's not helpful to anybody. Okay. So I mean, if you can find something. If you can find something noteworthy or praiseworthy in the person's performance, lean on that. Whatever it is about them that you like, that you appreciate, find that chance to say, hey, listen, really appreciate that. And then you can go in, give that coaching, and then you can end it positively. If this is done correctly, at the end of the day, the person comes out of the conversation feeling supported and valued. So I'm going to just dive right in. We're going to talk more about this, but I want to dive right into an example because I think it may help. And so, again, use this in a Foxhole context. Let's say I'm talking with one of our squad mates afterward. I saw something in his performance. We'll just use a very simple example. There was a really good operation day. Your regroups today were on point and helped us significantly. We would not have been nearly as effective if we had been slower on that. The only thing I'd suggest is that we spend some more time working on cooking grenades. There were a few collies that escaped our nades today, and they gave us trouble later on. If we had done better as a team, if we do that better as a team, we're going to be even better in the future. Nevertheless, excellent work today, and I look forward to having you in my squad the next time. Now, that seems like if you're not used to delivering those kind of statements, that's really clunky and that's really awkward. But some of you that have worked with me have heard me give some iteration of that at some time or another. No matter what it is, I've probably done something very, very similar to that. And an even better segment, so that's in a situation where I've identified something that I really specifically think, objectively, we need to work on. And one of the things I want to point out here is that in the negative statement there that I've underlined, there is no you there. There is we and there is our. That is our accountability. We as a team did this. I'm pointing out that he's a part of that team, that I want him to be a participant to that, but I'm not singling him out. I'm not using a you statement there because I'm trying to soften the blow a little bit and acknowledge that maybe he's not the only one person that needs to grow in that. Maybe I need to grow in that. Maybe I'm not perfect in whatever it is we're talking about. An even better way, though, is if you want to be more collaborative, and this is when where there's a discussion element to this. And so, if I were to take that underlined sentence and replace it with, would really love to hear from you on what you think we could have done better, then I can start a dialogue. And what happens with a dialogue is you start to get a sense for what, if they participate anyway, you start to get a sense for what opportunities they saw in their performance. And you get one of two benefits. Either they see the same opportunity in themselves that you saw, and then you don't even have to tell them. They've seen it themselves. You're like, man, I'm really glad you brought that up. That's awesome. Let's work on that. Anything I can do to help you. And then alternatively, they may bring up something you didn't notice, right? Maybe they have some area of growth that you missed entirely and that they saw within themselves that you're now prompting, and now you're able to give support. You're able to give encouragement along that. You're able to give advice because you brought it out. You drew it out in a context that was safe. And if you've got a reputation for being a guy that doesn't come down on top of people, that's encouraging and supportive, then these discussions can very frequently yield results. And you can get really good conversations, really good developmental conversations in this kind of environment. I'll pause there for a second. So once again, Dark, any immediate thoughts that come to mind?
I don't mean to hit you like a truck with this example. So what would you do if you're in a situation where you as a squad leader and an individual, makes a mistake, but someone else catches it and starts, you know, like he that person, because there's a few passionate people, and those passionate people, they don't understand, some forms because they're not a leader. They're like, I'm just a soldier, but why are you screwing up like that? Like, dude, how do you miss that shot? And how do you do as a leader to
Yeah.
either pick up after that to like, because already at that point the mood is already set. That person's been singled out, and it was kind of like out of your control. You couldn't
Right.
catch that shot before, I mean, no one would have known that person would have, you know, called out that guy. And I know it's going to be a discussion of course, talking to that person who singled out the guy. But how can you walk us
Hmm.
through on how to deal with the situation from that?
You have two coaching opportunities there that just manifested themselves, right? Right at the same time. Because you got two people involved that actually made a mistake. One doesn't realize it, the other one's embarrassed at this point. If you let it get out of control, and so my usual go-to in that situation, if we're in the middle of the op, is, "Hey man, I appreciate you bringing up some opportunities for us to do things better. Let's get our heads back in the game and do this. We'll take care of that later. Done. Just wash it off the table. And if he presses on it, then I take care of it right there. I drag the guy into a different channel who's pressing the issue and say, hey, listen, man, I know that you're excited about this. I know that this might be affecting the operation right now, but there's not a thing we can do about this right now that's not going to compromise the other things we're working on. I need your support to get this back on the road so we can finish this op and get done what we need to get done. And I'm more than happy to talk to you about this. You're absolutely right that we need to be better. I want to be better, but now's not the time to do it." That's probably where I would go there. And a lot of that depends on the relationship. That's a very generic example, but depending on your relationship with the person involved or the relationship of the two people that are in the middle, that changes a lot of things. Because we got some guys that are scrappy, right? And that coaching that he him pointing out, like, maybe they're just competitive with each other, right? And it's just good natured ribbing. You have to kind of assess that and have enough awareness to know when to intervene and when not to intervene. And so I guess there's a lot of different contexts that could influence the situation. And then with the first guy, you've really got to objectively understand, okay, is there like a core mechanics issue here that I can help? Or is what is it that needs to change there? And that may result into just a follow-up saying, hey, listen, man, I understand that getting called out in the spot right there is not good for anybody. I don't appreciate that, and we're going to work that out. But I did want to offer you any support that you needed. So how do you feel about your gameplay right now? Is there anything that I can do to help you grow? Anything that you identify in your performance that you need that could benefit you? Right, and that's the same conversation I would have if I was talking to an employee that was struggling, or a rifleman that's struggling in my section. I start in first with the trying to get his self-assessment of where he is, and what you'll find is either there's a mechanical skill or a judgment issue that you can help grow and nurture, or you may find, as I've found many times, even in the infantry squads, and I've had this conversation in private with a few infantrymen that are struggling before, and just kind of came to the conclusion that they just don't feel like they're cut out for it right now. Like the intensity of the channel's too much, they get a little overwhelmed, or they just don't feel that strong in it. And so then we talk about, well, where can you be strong then? You want to try being a medic. I don't need you to flick shots as a medic. I just need you to be smart. Maybe you have a good time there. Or our CE guys are super laid back. That environment in that channel is really laid back, and maybe you'd enjoy spending some time with those guys. They're chill, they're fun, they joke throughout the whole op. And if you just want to join an operation and smoke weed, man, CE is where it's at for you, right? So the idea is trying to find the right fit for that person at the end of the day. So that's a much longer answer to a very simple question, but that's kind of where I would go.
All right, thank you on that. Because I know it's something that I know I've ran into those type of situations, and I don't know whether to like I just generally just always like dumbstruck on how to handle that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And again, it's hard situation because it's variable to the just variable of what's going on. So let's talk peer to peer here. So some of this is let's say that you're not a leader, or you've got another leader that you're having an issue with. How then do you use this SCS approach to talk to a peer, somebody that's on the same level as you, and you observe something that needs an improvement? The style and approach is a little bit different because you don't have authority at that point. So at a certain point, you've got to kind of make a call here, and so let's let's kind of take this first one here. Like we just did like a whole rule reset on DK, so it's kind of top of mind for me. But let's say somebody's proposing a whole new reset. I can go look at that and go, hey man, I think you're onto something that we definitely need to update and change the rules, and it helps a lot that you put a draft forward for us to get a head start with it. There may be an opportunity under rule number 3 for us to eliminate it because it is completely redundant with rule number 2. I'm really grateful that you noticed this and you pulled this together for us to review, and let me know if you want a hand reviewing it further. Again,
Wait. This sounds awfully too damn familiar.
I mean, I might have said something similar to this recently, but again,
Well used.
yeah. Yeah, so
I'm just joking.
I
Thank you,
just
though.
I just do it unconsciously though, right? And it's just something when you hardwire it into the way that you do things all the time. It's not about it's about being respectful. At the end of the day, it really is just about being respectful and finding opportunities to recognize people because they deserve to be recognized, and finding any excuse that you can to recognize people's efforts is just a good quality. It's not to manipulate people. It's not to get your way. It's not to be to try to work a system. It's because you genuinely are grateful and you're expressing that thanks. And if you can get that into your head and you get that in your mind that you do have genuine thanks and gratitude for the efforts that people put in around you, and you find every excuse you can to share that, and it just kind of starts to pour out of you, and then you find opportunities to weave in your recommendations, your suggestions, and your ideas. You put those suggestions and ideas in a humble way, completely acknowledging that it's your idea and your idea could be wrong, and you're okay to be wrong, and it's safe to be wrong. Then who's going to be upset with that? Like, who's going to go sideways when you couch it like that and you deliver it that way, as opposed to if you go in hard and you don't have a good relationship with that person, or you come in too abrupt and you go, dude, rule number 2 and rule number 3 are completely redundant. Why the hell did you do that? Like, what, read before you send me something. Like, nobody wants to be treated that way, and so it's completely different. Your attitude and your philosophy dictates how you approach this. And
Just
so, go ahead.
I don't want to chime in there because I've been on the receiving end on both, literally the both situations you just said right now of wanting to do something and someone coming in more like this is you feel heard and you feel the key respected and you it's like it helps you learn because it's one of those things like it really does. I know I don't feel manipulated at all because at the time it feels like my concerns have been heard and I feel like I can grow as a person because the way he brought it up, I don't feel like I was left out or singled out. Versus the other time I've been in the situations where people, not being like I feel the opposite. I feel like I'm the only one who knows what right is. Everyone else doesn't understand, and I feel like I'm being ignored, and things are just manifesting more. And it gets to the point where, like, you know what? Forget it. I don't care. Do whatever you want.
Right.
And that's like, you don't want your answer or you don't want the result to be like that. You want to be encouraging, not discouraging to people.
Right, and again, at the same time, what it creates is a cycle of disrespect. Because when I disrespect your idea and I don't pay attention to your idea, then you actually deliver that in return. It's like, well, f you. If you don't want to listen to me, I don't give a crap what you have to say either. You do your own thing then. If you think you got this, you think you're smarter than me, you think you got all the right ideas, go on there, big man, take care of this, right? And it's funny in that context. It's over something so stupid, but this kind of crap happens all the time over stupid stuff, really stupid stuff, and it all boils down to respect. Show respect to other people, and you'll receive respect in return. That's the bottom line. And again, I want to really emphasize this only works if you're not fake. You can write what I just wrote here and it be fake because you don't believe it, and you'll write it fake, and people will see it for fake because it's not who you've shown yourself to be. It's not something that you genuinely believe in, and so I'm going to really emphasize: if you can't believe it and you don't actually mean it, don't say it. I mean that with all certainty. If it kind of comes back to your mother's old advice: if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. All right, better to be genuine than to be a liar, and then trying to pull something over on somebody else. Next example here. Hey, brother, that guy was a complete prick, and you were absolutely right to defend Drake there. We were probably a bit too aggressive with him, though, so we might want to consider going through his leader next time because we could look like the bad guys now. Thanks for taking the initiative for supporting our guys. That was a good call, right? And so, again, you've got a situation where somebody went wrong. One of our guys got attacked, and then we jump all over that guy that attacked him, right? We let him have it. We go after him hard, and maybe that wasn't the best call. Maybe we should have done this a little bit differently. And by couching this positively, by acknowledging, you know what, you walked in with the right intentions, right? You saw that one of our guys was under attack. 100%, it was wrong that our guy was under attack. We need to look out for our guys. That's awesome. You recognize what's good, and then move on, right? Move on to the coaching and put that in there. Float the idea that maybe we didn't do the right thing. And you notice here that I put the we in there again. We were probably a bit too aggressive. I didn't do anything. We as a team, though, I'm part of the team. And at the end of the day, we make that decision together. I should have noticed that my brother there was getting a little heated and was going to go off on that guy. So I'm just as responsible for him going off on that guy as he is, because I didn't anticipate that he was going to be in a situation where he was going to lose his composure and go off like that. So once again, I'm owning it, where I could have said, well, he just went off the deep end. I don't know what the heck he was thinking, and he should have known better than that. Instead, I'm owning it and I'm saying, you know what? I know that this was a heated situation, and I saw the signs that he was getting a little worked up. I could have interceded there and probably gotten in front of that if I had thought about that a little bit more and done that differently. And so once again, attitude, perspective. When you set your attitude and perspective right, you see opportunities all over to influence situations that you didn't think you could influence before because your mind is open to it. Once again, Dark, I'll go ahead and pause. Any thoughts, comments?
If I would have just realized what I asked in the previous slide was going to be an example you were going to have here, I definitely wouldn't have wasted time.
You didn't waste time, though. It was a good
Literally
example.
bringing up, literally bringing up like the same, like literally, you like cut and paste into like you knew. Like, it's like if you knew what my topic was, I just slammed it in there. Like that's so funny.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out. Let's go to a harder conversation because, in my opinion, the support coach support model is easy because it's positive, man. It's natural. It comes easy, but at a certain point, you need to know when to draw a line in the sand. And this is probably you can use this as a leader, and you can also use it as somebody talking to a leader. I'm going to give you examples of both of these when I'm finished, kind of introducing the subject. But this conversation purposefully does not start out positive because at a certain point, you're trying to communicate that something serious is going on and that there are consequences if we don't have a change. And so what can happen is if you go in positive, like I like to be positive. I like to recognize things. I like to be, upbeat and see the silver lining. But sometimes you do got to get down to the bottom line. And so in a professional context, like if you've got somebody that's really screwing up and if they don't improve, they're going to get fired. You need to have a real conversation with somebody. You owe that person a real understanding of how serious their situation is. And if you walk in all positive and talking about all of their good qualities, they may not get that message, okay? And that's the only reason that this conversation is not designed to be positive. It's designed to be consequential. It's not designed to be rude, okay? It's not designed to be ugly. It's not designed even to be aggressive, but it is designed to be very sober and very sober-minded about where we're at and what we can expect here. And the basic philosophy is kind of described below there. You describe what you've seen. What is the behavior? You evaluate and describe the impact that it has on the team. So what is being done and what is it doing to the team, the outfit, the organization, the company, the family, whatever it is, what's the effect? You need to show and demonstrate what needs to change for this not to be a problem any longer, and then you need to make sure they know what the consequences are if there's not a change. Period. End of statement. And if you hit all those points in some meaningful way, this method is very, very good. It's a good model to follow for helping you organize your thoughts, because that's all it is this is helping you organize your thoughts for how to have a hard conversation and give some very difficult feedback that is critical to get across, where there's no room for debate about it. There's no room for discussion. You've evaluated that this is a systemic issue that is core to this person's responsibility and focus. And if you got stuff to own in it, that's fine. But you've already done all that. You've already gone through the review. You've seen the examples, and you've tested it. You've tested yourself. You've gone through your head and made sure that this is an issue that you got to work through. Then you go here. It's worth mentioning that if the last method was for average and high-performing people, this is for decidedly low-performing individuals. Okay, people that are at the end of their rope, so to speak. So let's lead right into example, because I think it's best to look at these from examples. All right. Again, I'm going to use this verbal abuse toward the team because we got in DK, we have some pretty strict guidelines that we tried to live up to the ideal of being respectful of our team and the people that we work with. So I think this is useful. We've continued to see repeated occurrences of harassment and verbal abuse towards our team. This brings our clan into disrepute and harms our ability to properly coordinate with allies and attract good people to join us. There needs to be an immediate change in the way our teammates are cooperated with, and we cannot receive any further complaints from allies or teammates about rude, condescending, or aggressive behavior. Our team removes players from the roster who do not meet these expectations, period. And so this conversation is direct. You notice it's brief, right? And so if I'm typing, I have typed sentences just like this to former and current members of DK. Okay, I'll just be very real and very open. People that are both in DK today and outside of DK have seen a message that is almost identically written to something like this. Maybe not for this issue, but this model has followed pretty closely. And the reason for that is it puts people on notice. And in all those conversations, I've never had somebody get ugly with me. I've never had somebody get ill. I've said some people get a little frustrated, but it's not been at me. It's been with the situation. They immediately start talking, and they'll either own it or they'll start to make excuses. And so, at the end of the day, you can start to see some of the principles we talked about. You noticed here again that I avoided using the word "you." It was hard. Let me be very clear. It is hard to write this message without using the word "you." I dare you to take some time. If you really want extra credit, take some time to try to craft this message without using "you," using your own language. And you'll notice that you probably very naturally, as I'm even talking right now, I'm using the word you a lot because we very naturally weave it into our language. And the message that you come with, the first draft that you write this will be more aggressive than your final draft. The first time I wrote this, and I've got years of writing this kind of stuff, my draft was more aggressive than the final iteration of the draft that I finally settled on, which is why I'm very much a big fan of writing it down and playing out how you want to open up the conversation. And this comes back to either episode 1 or episode 2. I don't remember which one we kind of talked about this in, but when you prepare the conversation, when you set yourself up to be respectful, what follows is respectful. So start preparing your opening sentences to be gracious helps you stay gracious. Whereas if you start aggressive, you kind of don't have much hope but to continue aggressive. And it's just critical to kind of plan and think and decide how you want to open this up and how you want to approach it. So as a leader, team member, very good example of a way to approach this and use this method. Notice there's no positive things here. I'm not talking about how much I appreciate that they're part of the team. I'm not talking about how much I appreciate the dedication and the hours that they've put in, the fact that they look out for other guys. I am only focusing on this behavior that if they don't fix this, it's going to result in them getting removed. And there's nothing personal here. We do this to anybody, right? Our team removes players from this roster who do not meet these expectations, period. It's not about you, man. It's not personal to you. In fact, if it was personal to you, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion because we like you, whatever it is. But we're trying to isolate the behavior and focus on that, get it out on the table and deal with it and make sure they understand that, this is the line that we're not willing to cross. And if they don't come to our side of the fence here and work with us, they ain't going to be with us, period, end of statement.
Amen.
Team member to leader. So let's do the inverse. All right. So let's say that you, as a team member here, you got a leader that's not doing what he needs to do. Because let me tell you, you got leaders that don't do what they ought to do. You got leaders that make mistakes. How do you raise that up the chain of the command then? How do you say that in a way that's not threatening, that's not disrespectful? How can you do this to your boss in a way that you kind of, let them know that there's a possible issue in a way that makes you not afraid for your job, right? Because, I'll tell you, leaders that get feedback from their team, if they're even a leader that's remotely worth their salt, would kill for somebody to give them this kind of insight. I want my team to come up to me and tell me this if I'm going awry. I don't want them to let me suffer in silence and be a wrecking ball through my team. If I've got an issue going on, like the one I'm getting ready to talk about, I need to know that. And I am going to be so grateful if you bring that up to me. And most good leaders will, especially if you do it in such a way that's not aggressive, threatening, or rude. And so here's the way to do it. Again, just open it up. There have been a lot of times that we have been corrected in front of our peers. Again, notice that the you is missing there. This is starting to instill some bitterness between myself and some of the other guys because we're not being treated with respect. I'm asking that if there's an issue, that we get pulled aside in private to work through whatever it is. If things do not change, I'm afraid we're going to start lose some of the guys, and I do not think I can continue to follow like this, right? You notice in this case here, there's a lot of I statements. It's not about you, it's about me. I'm the issue here. It's my weakness. It's my sensitivity that's the problem here. And I'm okay saying that because I'm secure in myself. I don't have insecurities. I know that I'm stable. I've got confidence, and I have no problem subordinating myself to somebody else, acknowledging that, this issue, I'm having a hard time getting around. Because if I was if I was a little bit stronger, this wouldn't bother me as much. But I'm asking you as my leader to work with me through my weakness to make this not an issue for me. Like, you notice the frame of reference and the mind change here, whereas if I came in aggressive, it's like, listen, man, you're correcting me in front of the team all the time. You're cutting my legs out from under me. I don't appreciate it. And if you don't stop doing it, I'm going to leave, right? And how many times have we thought about that in our head when somebody's been disrespectful to us? And the tone is completely different. And it's a lot easier for a leader to listen to the first iteration of this, the one I've got on the screen, than for when you come at him and you attack his ego. You come after him personally and let him know that he's effing up. And he's like, and you know what his response is going to be? Well, if you weren't effing up all the time, if you do what I said, then I wouldn't have to come down on you all the time. Kaz, if you would just listen to the orders I give you, I wouldn't have to publicly reprimand you and bring you in line because you're not doing what I need you to do. On the flip side, when I come into this, he might be a little bit more respectful and unrespectful. Like, okay, well, let me think about it. Maybe there is a better way I can support Kaz here. I realize that Kaz needs a little bit of support, and I'm willing to do that. But you notice, for me to get there, I got to humble myself, right? Because if you got an ego problem, you can't send this message. If you're not secure in yourself, you're not going to be able to humble yourself to somebody that you're subordinate to and open up the possibility of being a little vulnerable and acknowledging that this is a problem for you. It's bothering you, and that, maybe, just maybe, you're the issue, he's not the issue. Being open-minded to it alone is enough to kind of soften the blow and open up the dialogue and the possibilities for dialogue, but it takes humility. It takes a lot of humility to do that and to give criticism. I'd say probably one of the most difficult things to do is to give this kind of feedback up the chain of command. And it's very uncommon for people to be good at this. Dark, any thoughts before we continue?
No, no, just listening and learning right now.
Sure thing. It makes me, I just kind of, and I'm going to go off the prepared path here for just a second. It makes me think I had worked at one point for a very, very aggressive CEO. And she was a ball buster, man. Let me tell you. And one of the reasons was in the HR field, it's not common for men to be in the HR field, generally speaking, especially in healthcare. It's not common for men to be in healthcare, for God's sake, much less be in HR. But a lot of I was put in this facility specifically, number one, because I was a male, and number two, because I had a lot of experience dealing with hard personalities, and the CEO had a really hard personality. And I will never forget some of the difficult conversations I had to have with this, because she walked through that organization ready to chop everybody's head off, ready to drop a bomb on people. And even her, with all that fire pent up inside her, I've used this strategy with her. And almost this exact same conversation, because she would right there in the middle of meetings just tear into people. And what happened is, we go through the end of the meeting. So, all right, anybody want to bring up anything we got going on, any issues that we need to talk about right now? When we get through there at the room, silence. Nobody was going to bring up a room while Ann was in that room, because they knew if they brought up an issue, she was going to lose her mind and light that room on fire. And so people stopped bringing issues up, and they wanted to create a world where she was under the delusion that everything was fine. And, it took a long time for me to kind of help her see around to that reality and to understand that, while she thought that she was holding people accountable, while she thought she was developing a high-performing team, what she was creating was an echo chamber where people would only tell her what she wanted to hear. And as a result, the performance of that hospital suffered dramatically and traumatically, because people were not doing things well. They were not resolving issues. And she had a lot to offer. She was smart. She was really, really smart. And she could solve a lot of issues if you would, bring her in the know and have her help. But people were just afraid of her, and they were intimidated by her. And taking that time to find the right way to approach her, even a fireball like that, was really healthy. And I'll confess, sometimes it didn't go as well as I'd hoped. And I remember some conversations very explicitly where I walked in and I said, Ann, I got to talk to you about this. I don't know that we're doing the right thing here. And she got all fired up, and I said, look, Ann, this is your hospital. She's like, damn right, it's my hospital. But it is. I said, fair enough, but understand, it is my role here to help you think through this full decision. And if this is what you want to do at the day, I got your back, and I will support you 100%. I will do exactly what you want me to do. But I would be irresponsible if I did not give you another thing to think about before you made this decision. So please, let me talk about this. Let me have you think about this before you make this call. And I stayed even. I stayed level. She was shouting mad at me at the start. She was so frustrated that I dared to bring the issue up. But by the end of the conversation, after about 30 minutes of haggling with her, she thanked me when it was over, and we walked out of that room. And I maintained a high level of respect with this lady who was, again, a wrecking ball, very difficult personality, because I was calm, I was respectful, I humbled myself in front of her, and in that strategy, I'm going to be very clear, that strategy will not fail you. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. This strategy is not native to me. I did not make this up. This is from a lifetime of experience from other people. I had the privilege of learning at the feet of some very, very smart men and women who were very humble in their approach to things and did some amazing things in their lives. And I know that I'm privileged that I was experienced to learn at their feet and apply a lot of this stuff. And all I can share with you is that it works. That's the best I can say. And I'm not smart enough to come up with this on my own, but I'm telling you, having the right philosophy and the right application of a lot of these topics that we're talking about is a real, real difference maker. So with that being said, we are almost right at the 1 hour mark for this. And so
Ooh.
we are coming in hot, Dark, on time today, and done, I think, a little bit better than we have in previous casts. And that's the main curriculum that we wanted to go through for this evening. And so what I'll do is, I know that I have not been paying too much attention to the chat. And Dark, I've seen that you're in there a little bit. Are there any questions, either Dark from you or from the chat that we'd like to discuss this evening before we close things out?
I'm just looking right now. I don't really see. I think most of my questions or concerns have already been pretty much reached down here.
Awesome. Well, I'll give it a couple minutes here and just kind of tie things down a little bit. And if any questions do come up, we'll come up there. Just some housekeeping. Some people have asked kind of about the regular schedule for this, and we do intend to do this for the foreseeable future every Tuesday night, pretty much right at this time, so you can kind of know to expect that at this point. And sorry, I just don't like you enough to give you that kind of message. That's the heart of it, mate. So that's
Not a duck.
you're just not a
completely
duck, brother. You're not a duck.
shame.
What I've given to you, Czar, has been verbal stuff that you just haven't even realized. So I'll have you think about that for a little while.
Oh fuck.
But with all that being said, if there is no other things this is kind of what we're enjoying to do. I do want in all seriousness, guys, I really desperately crave you guys' feedback on this, on topics that you guys want to continue to learn more about. One thing that's cool about this is that we can cater this to be as useful as it can be, and there's no shortage of topics that we can research, that we can share, and that we can think about and talk about. So if you've got something, a principle, a situation even that you'd like us to focus on, put it out there. Let us know. And General, we'll go ahead and hold on. If you want to take a moment to type that, we'll hang around and we'll wait for that. That's not a problem.
Sir.
And this is something that, as Dark has identified before, I'm very, very passionate about as a person. It's not a big deal for me to do these. I enjoy doing these. I enjoy helping people learn, because for me, it's passing down something that I got when I was younger. And again, I'm very grateful for it. And I've seen the benefits, not just in my gaming life, but in my career and in my personal life. My marriage is better because my techniques are better. My job is better. My career has definitely benefited from really good technique and good decisions, frankly, that have been made that other people chose not to make. And one of the things that I think is all too common, if you're not in the public sector yet and you're not working at work yet, and Dark will vouch for this, I'm sure, is one thing you're going to find is things don't work really well at work, right? Like, you got this delusion that organizations are well-oiled machines, that they got stuff dialed up. You go through school and college, and they teach you all this technique, and they teach you the textbook way of doing things, and then you show up in the real world, and they just don't work that way, okay? People don't follow the rules. The things that you learn in school are nice principles, but it doesn't always work that way in real life. And that's just something that's really, really nutty.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you're 100% right on that. Like, you would think going into an organized corporation, like, okay, oh, hold on, let me turn that off. Sorry, unprofessional of me. Um, what was I? Oh yeah, you would go in thinking like, okay, everything should be standardized and good to a point. But when you just start looking at it, you're only looking from the outside perspective. Once you go in, you start to see like things aren't as structured as you see as things may seem, and it just leads to a lot of frustration or even opportunities too. Because if something's unstructured, it leaves whoever wants to take ownership and responsibility the chance to grow and even get noticed in the company that that kind of like not thrives in chaos, but has chaos as like its normal go-to thing. And it just takes someone who's willing to go the extra mile and improve and do things for the better.
What's so
One,
interesting? Go ahead, Dark.
I was just say that we have like one of our other pieces of the triangle. I was just asking a question about
Yeah,
comms.
yeah. I was going to address that in a second. But one of the things that's so interesting, Dark, is that the people that you find that are like in charge are still human beings. Like, sometimes you forget that people that are at the highest level of these organizations are actually human beings who make mistakes, who have vices, who have issues. And one thing you're going to find out when you get in the workplace is that all these people are imperfect and they make mistakes all the time. And the things that like make the best kind of employees and the kind of people who get promoted are not people who are like the best, the best technically. They're the people who, you know, in my opinion, anyway, in my experience, and I know there are exceptions to this, but in my experience, they're the people that do, that have the right personal qualities, that they, they have qualities like they work hard. They come to work on time all the time, right? Like, there's just the basics. They get the basics right, and as a result, they get recognized for that many times. And you do have cronyism. You do have situations where you've got nepotism, that kind of crap going on. I don't want to unsubstantiate those things because those things are real. But I will say that, generally speaking, you can definitely improve your odds by getting the basics right, being a humble person, by being kind, gentle, loving, patient. Those kind of things go a long way in ways that you just can't even imagine. Do you find in your experience that avoiding you and focusing on we can inevitably engender a strong team focus and bond in a lot of ways, since the focus is making it better for everyone and not just that a certain person is an issue? I picked this up early in my career and sort of kept up with it. Interesting on your thoughts on it. 100% right. And so you when you take the focus off you and you put it back on the team and you put it back on us, you're absolutely right. You build a stronger bond because it's no longer being personalized and weaponized against a single individual, and your thoughts are always on the cohesion of the group and on the cohesion of the whole. And I've seen that work in cultural transformations in organizations. When you focus less on individuals, you focus more on like the team and the group successes. It's everybody's win. And when individuals get singled out, a lot of times, even sometimes for good things, it can be kind of isolating, and it can silo groups of individuals and make things a little difficult. And so, yes, I mean, other than saying yes, I don't necessarily know how to answer your question much better, but I couldn't agree more with your statement. Coming to Avidus's thought for a second, Avidus, I mean, that's almost a full blown stream, my man. If you think about it, we cover this in very basic terms in some of our basic training, but the importance of good communications and clear communications, it could not be understated in being both a leader and a good follower, right? And that is not something that necessarily comes naturally. And so in DK, so I think in DK we've got some principles and standards that we set in motion to try to help with that, and that we teach in our new our new RIP training and that kind of thing, because it is important. And so Avidus is right to highlight it. Let me chew on that a little bit and see how we integrate that in, because there are ways that we can roll that into a broader subject as well, because it really is an important topic that deserves more than just kind of a last minute thought. So appreciate that.
Could be is something for the next one. Definitely would be something interesting. Just like a whole general course of communication, how to speak when no one wants to speak. We could easily see and chop it up and divide. It's such a big and important question that it deserves just like you said, a better answer with its own stream.
Yeah. This one I love to talk about. Why is every attack high diddle diddle straight up the middle? Why can't we ever have more flanking attacks? And so I'm not sure if that's a question about DK or if that's a question about wardens in general. It's definitely true of wardens, and sometimes it's true of DK. That question is a hard one to attack. So let me tell you that there will always be some element of a front line that you have to work around. And without getting into all the trade secrets, so to speak, what generally happens is so in general, wardens, generally speaking, most wardens don't have the presence of mind or the strategic understanding of the game to see the opportunities to flank. And what's happening is they've been incentivized and they've been trained because of their own impatience to respawn, grab their kit, and run the straightest line possible to the highest concentration of enemies. And that just so happens to be the front. And so the Colonial on the other side is doing the exact same thing. So the vast majority of players are creating that meat grinder where you make little to no progress because you've just got one strong arm hammering against the other. And where you see progress being made in those fronts is actually, both in our operations and outside of our operations, is when squads of individuals, be they sometimes as small as 3 to 5 guys or as many as 10 to 15 guys, maneuver around the flanks of the enemy and do the smarter play of hitting the weak underbelly, of hitting the side of that enemy front line and breaking it wide open. And that's where progress is frequently made on those fronts. Sometimes it's the wide flank to cut Logi, right? And I got to give Colonials, some of the Colonial clans, a lot of credit. They do an awesome job. Some of their partisan elements do an incredible job of doing some very complex, sophisticated cutoffs to regions. And we've got wardens on the front line that pay no attention at all that the battle is being lost back at the border, and they continue to grind out the front. And then they spam Logi chat that they don't have shirts and ammo and have no idea exactly what's going on because they just don't have the awareness, right? And it may be because they refuse to have the awareness. It may be because they just didn't notice. But that's really a big part of it. And flanks win battles. I mean, if I wanted to be oversimplified, flanks win battles. A lot of our squad leaders are taught to win battles using flanks and to maneuver on the sides of the enemy and find those opportunities to leverage our manpower better. And that's, I think, one thing that DK does quite well. And we have the manpower to sustain both the meat grinder and the flanks of the meat grinder during some of our operations. So I appreciate that thought, and definitely
I think
respect the question.
Avidus also brings up just an interesting statement, just because in general, wardens are kind of more of the frontline faction. But one thing to also consider is when you're on and off roads, it's much more beneficial for armor just to follow the roads. Just simply how the game mechanics are and how the core is. Like you'll often not be you'll most likely have a losing chance if you're flanking with armor. Towards the late stage in the game, you want to have the best mobility. In Foxhole, mobility is one of the key things. You can outmaneuver your opponents, you can get out of danger faster, or you can get that quick hit before the enemy can react. And when you're off road, you kind of lose a good fraction of that mobility. And most of the times, if you're ever engaging anywhere, you're sacrificing your speed for the enemy's inconvenience. But one of the biggest conveniences they have is most likely you're going to attack them on a road. So
Gotcha.
it's like you get to that that awkward situation of, yeah, of course you can go flank and be somewhat successful, but looking at it from like a, just from a pure stat and data stat line, you're more inconvenient pushing off a flank off road versus continuing down the preset road, because it's easier for logi, it's easier for you, you get me, just like for every thing you try to utilize, it's a lot better to focus a front that leads to the on the main roads.
Yeah, but that still doesn't mean flanking is not important, because you can flank those fronts. And but what happens, and what we've done many times, is our armor is that meat grinder, so to speak. That's the vanguard, and then our infantry sections or light mechanized sections will flank the field and help that engagement. So suddenly our armor gets a concave instead of a front line. Our armor is engaging that front line as we hit their sides, and then the colonials have a very difficult decision to make when they're being pressured from two angles of attack and their manpower is not being utilized very well. And yeah, Sar's absolutely right. Sar, if you could pull that bayonet charge vid and you can put it in the no man's land, that is a perfect example of what flanking can do to an entire front line and take ground very rapidly. You're 100% right. And the other question that you could put up there earlier, just to go ahead and address it, is, are mental disruption tactics toxic? And the answer to that is yes and no. They can be, right? If you're trying to get in somebody's head by pissing them off and getting them all worked up, then yeah, that's kind of toxic, man. Like that's not really the nice way to interact with somebody. But Avidus, in the last No Man's Land video, Avidus put a mental disruption tactic that's absolutely hilarious. I don't think it was toxic at all, but this guy hopped in a trench like unbeknownst to the collies, and he started playing the siren sounds of a nuke going off, and it got in the heads of the collies, and it completely disrupted them, and they were like panicking of what to do, whether they should hide. And that's a mental disruption tactic that was brilliant. It wasn't toxic; it disrupted them, but it was pretty awesome.
I think
So
I think it was, maybe I'm just delving too deep into it, but I think he's probably going more to the fact of, let's say you killed a colonial, and then you just resort to trash talking, because there's
yeah,
nothing worse
yeah,
when
it's
you got
toxic.
outplayed and do that. I think in general, especially if you guys like hear what we're talking about, it's just being a better person in general. Like, yeah, of course, that that type of thing, and it's very common on the internet to trash talk because you have almost no repercussions. But even though I feel like there kind of is one in the end, and it's you're building yourself a bad habit. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny, and it's enjoyable to call the person you just defeated, this and that. But in the end of the day, you become too accustomed to it because you keep doing it and doing it. And then you're noticing, maybe you're out in public and you just say something, and you never know who can hear. But I can tell you one thing: people are nosy and they will listen. And if you have a habit of doing that in the gaming field, it will leach out into your personal field. And let's say you're in a spot where you're working, and you let a little bit of this toxicity out. Someone unfortunately hears, and they get the wrong word or get the wrong message, and you're in an uncomfortable spot. And
yeah.
that's just the thing, is like little things like that. You could be someone that maybe it doesn't affect you at all, but not everyone is
Hmm.
built like that.
Yeah, and I think I would have hit the nail on the head. I couldn't agree with him more. I think if you're going in and you're role playing, and you're getting in the game, and you're having friendly banter, that's fine. Like when we roll in and yell for Callahan as we do a bayonet charge, that's not toxic. That's just fun. And so like and if you want to get like a die heretic in there, that kind of thing, and you've got a persona
Mhm.
for that, I don't think that's an issue. I don't really have a problem with that. That's part of the zone. Like that's getting in the zone of the game. That's part of the role play of the game. That's fine. But when you get, and I think everybody knows the difference between role playing, shouting for Callahan and saying "Die heretic," and going, "Yeah, get wrecked, noob," like that, or
I
what
was
I'm
about to
saying?
say, like,
Yeah,
there's a big difference. Like, let's say you down the colonial and you have your bayonet, and you have two things to say, like die noob or die heretic. It's a real interesting thing because one's more just trash talking, while the others has a little bit of an RP thing. Is I don't know. It's like one is just you expect everyone and their mothers to say that, like okay, haha, yeah. But some people can, I don't know. It's like I love the role playing aspect. That's just the type of player I've been. I've always
yeah.
just
Well,
immersed myself in there, and like I feel like you become, in a weird way, you become like a not the ideal person, but you become less toxic because you're
mhm,
not putting real life like values into whatever you're playing in. It's like I don't know.
yeah.
It's my preferred way, and I feel like it helps at least calm my mood.
And there's some beautiful bayonet charges where people are screaming at their top of their lungs while they're charging. That stuff works. It's fun. Not only is it fun, but it works. And I think that's just awesome. I think Avidus put the bayonet charge video here in the
I think
chat
you can,
on Twitch as well. But
if you know how to link it up, Cass. We can probably all watch it together.
I could see if I could figure that out without breaking it.
We'll see. If it breaks, we'll end it here, and if not, then we get a video to watch.
Hold on, let me see if I can figure this out. Oh no.
I think it's real easy. Just
No, I just got to set it up right. I don't have anything set up to. Uh,
I think we can make it real simple. As long as you have any malicious or anything, tabs open, just start from a new window, close
no,
everything,
but the problem
click
is like
on
I have
Avidus's.
I have my OBS set up not like to only specific programs. I don't have it set up to a desktop window. Uh,
I think just right click on your scenes, and it'll say new capture or new video, whatever that one is, and then you
yeah,
can just literally put the option to be window.
let's try that. That sounds like a good idea. Guys, forgive my noobness while I do this. We'll just do a display capture, I guess.
The ethics of stealing vehicles from noobs on the enemy team. It's just more so if you can. It's one of those things. Is how do you take it? Did you gas them and they immediately just die? It's like it's one of those things people will learn eventually, and a lot of times they learn the hard way. Just don't be toxic about it going your way, because I mean, don't get me wrong, you'll see any faction target PTEs that were in a like any type of vehicle, and everyone knows this too. People can't help themselves from saying it. I do it all the time, being like, oh my god, like there's a bunch of privates and sergeants in a battle tank. Well, that salute because you know it's gone. But it's like how other you can't blame them, because how else are they going to learn how to do it? You can maybe try to coach them, and if they're in the mood for it, they can do it.
All right, I think I've got this set up. We will see if this works. God forgive me if it doesn't. But yeah, I love this video from SAR and HCOM doing this bayonet charge. Let's see if we can get the volume right.
Oh yeah, we're good. We're cooking right now.
Heute sterben wir für den Imperator der Menschheit.
We shall cut them down where they stand.
My God, SAR, that is so beautiful. Sorry, that was the best play that's been made all day. Well done. That was incredible.
Oh my god, this is such an old video. As soon as I see these bad boys, it's like...
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that emphasizes kind of the importance of flanking, what it can do, and that whole bayonet charge. That whole bayonet charge just sealed the day. You saw the armor that armor vanguard that we had talked about rolled right up after that bayonet charge and completely took that ground just because those guys crashed into the side and completely broke the colonists. You saw vehicles running away from bayonets because the position was completely lost. So very powerful.
At that point, it's like it is a psychological thing as well. It's like you don't even have to get the kills, really. The kills just come naturally just from whatever response. But one of the key things is the enemy leaves, and they leave that position, and a position that they built up to get an advantage. Now that brought the armor. You saw there was a guy with an RPG that fired at infantry. Then eventually he bugged off and left. But it's like, you just come to think about it, so often, sometimes or not, an RPG can make the big difference in winning or losing a vehicle, and it's just like things like that are so often rare in Foxhole, and it's just, oh, dude, I can't every time I see these things, especially when I see our clan tags, I'm like, oh man, I wish I was there. Because the only one I only remember organizing a charge was, I don't remember the relic base. But it was early game, and the enemy had an FMG, and we had like 20 guys ready up, and then we just ran at it. FMG didn't get, I'll tell you, the FMG didn't get a fraction of the people because they were just so scared on trying to back up. And eventually we bayoneted them, and guess what? They had it unlocked, and we pushed it back to our front line, and now we had an FMG.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. We are definitely running late, but it was worth it to kind of work through some of the questions, guys. So we definitely appreciate your feedback. If you have any other further questions, we do have a channel dedicated to this on the 82DK Discord and the hashtag No Man's Land. So feel free to leave us a note there. And until next time, Dark, I think we're ready to sign off.
Yep. All right, guys. You guys have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Oh, wait. Hold on.
Okay.
Looks like we have one request. They want to play the lore master video.
The lore master video? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Scroll it up, and it's the last.
Oh yeah. Hold up. Let me see if I can pull that up.
That'll be our signing off. Right there.
The lore master video. Yeah, we'll play that, and then we're just gonna sign off on that for anybody else that wants to see that. Players of lore masters. Let me see if I can find. That's on the DK channel, isn't it?
We're still working on Razor about getting these uploaded. He's being a struggling boy. We have to utilize everything we're training to try to get him to just upload these damn things. He's just refusing to.
He'll get there. He'll get there. Players are the real lore masters. There's the video.
I mean, the colonial.
All right, we'll pull it up. Make it top of the screen. Move the thing.
Cut off his rations. I'll teach him.
All right, here we go. We'll play it now. Here's the players of the real Mars. 45 seconds for your enjoyment. And this is Avidus at his best.
I mean, the Colonials are a faction that, to my mind, doesn't value their life as highly as some of the Warden counterparts. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, our lore master.
Remember, he's saying this lore-wise, not actually the players.
There's so many coming from the south. Enemies.
Ah, they're here!
Glory to Callahan!
Kill them all!
Get on the wall. All squad, get on the wall and shoot the broad face. Just like shoot.
Lol.
Don't sting the middle, guys. Don't sting the.
That gets me every time. I love it.
There's one thing I did not notice until now. Do me a big favor before you exit it.
Yeah.
Go back to the video.
Hold up. Let me pull it back up.
When the guy dies, look at the chat in the bottom right and just look.
You've never seen that?
I never paid attention to it because I'm just looking at the chaos.
You are missing
but he just spams the chat.
Yeah, no, it's 82DK. It's 82DK. It's.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome. And that's like any type of engagement with like 10 guys with our tags. It just invokes this response.
This picture right here does it for me. I paused on this and looked at this. Look at that blob. Look at that blob of blue. It is so sick.
That's an unfortunate diagnosis right there. It's like, oh no.
Oh man, it was so good, so good. But yeah, no, I
All right,
appreciate that.
boys.
All right, we're signing off there. No more, no
was
more,
fun.
no more deviations, guys. Thank you so much
No
for
more
your support.
distractions. We're not taking it to 1:30.
Have a good night. Appreciate you guys.